Welcome back. So today we're sharing lessons from 1 Samuel 18 to 20, as well as the Psalms that corresponding Psalms that David wrote during this time. So obviously we see that at this time Saul has started to resent David. He was jealous of him and he started to persecute him, which was the reason why some of these Psalms were written, because obviously David has run away and he was feeling like persecuted and chased, and it was really a sad time for him. But let's jump right in. David displayed bravery during the battle with Goliath, and I put battle in inverted commas because he really just went there and kicked Goliath behind, and the victory made Saul want him on his team. We saw that when he said he would attach himself to him. I believe that that was why Jonathan also loved him. I believe that Jonathan, you know how when they say game recognized game, I believe that Jonathan had the same kind of faith, or maybe a similar type of faith to David, and he was like, that's a young man with faith right there. Jonathan was also brave and trusted God. That's why they were kindred spirits. By giving him, remember when he went to him and told him, you will be the next king, like he already realized that, no, I won't succeed my father. This must be the guy that the Lord had chosen. And he gave him his robe and his weapons. And it is believed that by doing that, he was transferring his position to David, because David was God's choice. And then remember, after David had defeated Goliath, the women started to sing that song of David killed his thousands, Saul killed his 1,000, David killed his 10,000. And the women's songs praising David made Saul jealous and also afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, obviously, and he knew that the Lord had left him, that was Saul, because he had this evil, distressing spirit on him. He sent David away to battle. After that, probably hoping that he would get killed. But God granted him great success, and the people loved David. Even his plan to trap him using his daughter. Remember the dowry that he requested? He said, oh, if you marry my daughter, get me 100 Philistine foreskins. And guess what? David came back with 200. How's that for, a dowry, Saul? Twice, Saul tried to pin David to the wall with his spear, and both times, when an evil spirit came upon him, that's when he did it. He was most likely schizophrenic, and I've said this again, because reading it again, I was like, yeah, there's something about this guy. He did it to Jonathan as well. He tried to also kill his son, like pin him to the wall because he was angry. That's such erratic behavior. Anyway, Saul and his men, who he had sent to capture David at Naioth, where he was with Samuel, all ended up prophesying. This shows God's sovereignty over evil purposes, because they all went for evil, but because Samuel and his people were prophesying, they too prophesied. Just shows God's sovereignty that, you think you are evil, you will come under my power. And that was really good. Saul was wily by keeping his plot to kill David from Jonathan, because he knew that they were friends, and he knew that Jonathan would do all he can to protect his friend David. Jonathan's display of loyalty to David in chapter 20 showed that he recognized that he would be the next king as chosen by God, and not he himself, Jonathan. In recognizing this, he was submitted to God's will, and instead of jealousy or envy like his father, he made a covenant of friendship in the purest form with David. And this was something that was to last generations, because he said, promise, you will keep this, show mercy to my generation. David wrote Psalm 11 when he was fleeing from Saul, or around that time. And the psalm is an expression of his faith in the Lord's righteousness. He trusts God's plan for his life in the midst of all the attacks, and he voices out his trust in God's love for him, despite the trials that he was experiencing, because he was going through a bad time. In Psalm 59, which was written when Saul sent his assassins to his house, but his wife Milcah put an idol in the bed and pretended that he was ill, and she lied to them about, about his state and his whereabouts, after she had helped him escape. And yeah, one thing that did come through to me was like she was an idol worshiper, Sha. So she had an idol to put in the bed, the size of a man, a mess. In this psalm, he remembers God's faithfulness to him in the past, and he encourages himself in the midst of the attacks on his life. Now, here's where I saw God in these chapters. The knowledge of God's sovereignty over his enemies was a source of great comfort to David in these psalms that we read today. So my lessons came from the Psalms. One thing that we should know is our enemies are God's enemies too. David said the same thing. And in Psalm 59, he says, "But you, O Lord, laugh at them," that's the enemies. "You scoff at those nations." The psalm ends with a confident note as David praises God as his defense and his refuge. Thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow we'll continue as I share lessons from 1 Samuel 21 to 24, and I look forward to having you here with me. Have a wonderful day. Bye.